Your gut says Miami is going to win and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on Sports.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST, Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Stryker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place if you're ready to dominate, whether it be season-long, DFS, straight-up wagering, whatever it is, we've got you covered. Yeah, I mentioned Joe Pisapia. Your ears all collectively went up. The author of the Fantasy Black Book. It's changed the way all of us, at least everyone I know in my inner circle, have been wagering and playing sports overall and enriching our lives. And Joe, on behalf of everyone, I want to thank you and welcome you in. How have you been? What's up, my man?
Happy Sunday, baby. I saw spring training baseball yesterday on my television set, and I'm not mad about it. I got to say, Juan Soto in the Mets uniform. I don't like the new Mets uniform. I like the hat. The hat's cool. But seeing Juan Soto in the blue and orange, he wasn't giving me a car, though. So I was a little bummed about that. He gave Brett Beatty a car. I don't know what I got to do to get a big Chevy Tahoe, wherever he got. But Matt Stryker, here's a question for you. You know, if you were a ball player and somebody came in there and said, hey, I got to have your number and I'm the big star of the team, what vehicle would Matt Stryker choose? See, people are saying, like, why didn't you ask for a Ferrari? Why didn't you ask for a Porsche or something like that? He got a Chevy Tahoe. Nice ride, $70,000. Matt Stryker, what kind of buyout for a car are you? That's my big question.
You want the grown man answer in the world in which we live, and I appreciate the gesture, Juan. Could you please donate that amount to insert something or someone here? That's what I would say. I know that's the oatmeal for the breakfast kind of answer, but at the end of the day, it's nice. It's good to talk about, but it shows more. Remember, I'm a wagering guy at the end of the day. It shows more about the camaraderie, about that locker room, and how everyone's going to look at Juan Soto and how he is going to bring that entire team with him. So as a wagerer and as a fantasy player, I'm really intrigued by a clubhouse morale. We were talking about it before we came on the air. That's an X factor. That's something that you can't really wager upon, but there it is, Joe.
I was just looking at what the best minivans of 2025 were for you, because I figured that's more likely. A Toyota Sienna, I believe, is up there in your range there. And I think that's what I'd be looking for. All the Cheerios on the floor for Matt Stryker.
Those can come in handy in a traffic jam.
Yeah,
don't tell my wife,
know.
but I've done that before.
All right.
Don't tell mom.
Get to the headlines. Let's get to the headlines. Let's talk Boston Red Sox. Maybe they need a car seat for Rafael Devers because he doesn't want to move from his position. I like my position. It's fine. Rafael Devers, third baseman. He's doing, I thought this was very interesting, separate workouts. Now, he's recovering from the shoulder surgery. Okay, fine. But taking infield separately, hitting separately, doing everything separately. Now, is he doing this separately because maybe he's taking some grounders at first base and his ego can't really handle doing it publicly right now? Is he doing it separately because he's mad and he doesn't want to hang out with everybody else and he wants out of Boston? I don't know. All I know is that Alex Bregman was taking balls at third base publicly this week. So this is becoming a situation to keep an eye on. Yusei Kikuchi had a great season in 2024. A ton of strikeouts, really kind of came out of nowhere. And he signed this offseason with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Somebody pointed out to me that that's really like saying, you know, when you translate it, the Angels of Anaheim. And I can't get it out of my head, Matt, because Los is not also. So
Right. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, it's ruining me. But anyway, Kikuchi gets an opportunity here as the opening day starter, which I think is terrific for him. Congratulations, Kikuchi. It's amazing how early we're getting these opening day starters. Usually it's like into March. But February, all these managers are just laying the money on the table saying, this is my guy. Not that there were a lot of options for the Angels necessarily for that starting gig. Also, starting at the top of the lineup potentially for the Phillies in 2025, Trey Turner. Now, I like this. I think this is where Trey Turner should be. Call me old school, but Matt and I are old enough to remember when your best hitter hit 4 and your leadoff hitter was a guy with speed who could get on base and make good contact. And, you know, Trey Turner last year obviously had some struggles. We all remember the Trey Turner support team that got out there and kind of turned his season around. Great little documentary, too. It's like a half-hour long. Go watch it. Very cool. But last year he played 121 games. Obviously, games played has always been a difficult one for Trey Turner in his career. 19 homers, 27 steals, a 295 batting average, and 807 OPS. Now, this would change that Phillies lineup, and I know we're going to talk about that Phillies lineup a little later in the show, but Matt, to me, this feels right. I think, you know, the Phillies last year, real sour note for them. They had high expectations. They were my pick to go to the World Series for the National League last year. They fell short to the New York Mets, and I think it's good to shake things up a little bit. They added Luzardo. We'll talk more about that in hour 2 when we're doing our lineup previews. But Trey Turner at the top of this lineup, with moving guys like Kyle Schwarber more towards the middle, I think feels a little bit more right to me. What are your thoughts on Trey Turner back in the leadoff spot potentially in 2025?
Sure. Look, as a wagerer, I want a landscape that I can understand, something that's simple to me and something that works. So if you have Turner at the top, you put Harper behind him for the protection. Now, you mentioned the games played. There are 5 seasons where Turner has played 120 or more games, and he's flirted with 303 of those. So you couple that with the pop that he brings, and I think you kind of get this new generation leadoff guy. The Yankees try to do it with Aaron Judge. You kind of get this leadoff guy. You think Ricky Henderson, blessed be the name. And you like what the Phillies can do. I think you washed last season for Turner, and I think you look forward to them. And they're a team that I'm keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Phillies still have a lot in that tank. I think the pitching is really deep, too. I think they finally addressed some of the bullpen issues, too. Romano's going to be finally, I think, a closer they can, you know, set their watch to a little bit easier. That's always been their undoing, right? It's the bullpen. But that was their undoing in the series, too. I feel like every year with the Phillies, you know, it's either, you know, they get off to that late start where, you know, they get really hot late and then they roll through. Last year, they were good at the beginning of the season for once, good the whole year. And then again, at the end, it's the bullpen that became their undoing, which is pretty tough. Now, also, when you're talking about, you know, going back to that Boston situation, there's some other pieces, too. You know, Roman Anthony is scratching the surface. A lot of people's number 1 prospect in baseball overall. Now he's an outfielder. And then there's Christian Campbell, who profiles a lot like Mookie Betts, a really good athlete, really quick hands, very athletic kid, can play in the infield, can play in the outfield. So he gives you options. And there's a lot of people and a lot of buzz already around camp. I had Jeff Ponce on my show from Baseball America a couple of weeks ago on Fantasy Bros MLB, and we talked about, you know, exactly, you know, who are the guys to really watch. And he was talking about Matt Shaw, but he could not stop talking about Christian Campbell. And he thought there was a chance that he could really break camp, even with a Bregman signing. Now, Bregman did sign. So we'll see how things work out. Trevor Story, maybe that's the path. I don't know, where he is once again underwhelming or once again unable to go. I know you have some concerns about Christian Campbell as a shortstop, but if you have Rafaela move back to short at some point to cover Trevor Story, Campbell could play the outfield. So now it's a matter of, let's see how this kid handles major league pitching, because if you look at the minor league stats, this is a guy that flew through single A, double A, triple A last year, a combined 997 OPS. Matt, that's a guy who is getting it on every level and looks like he's going to bring power and speed to the Red Sox sooner than later.
Yeah, and you mentioned a young kid. I think he's like only 22 years old and already grades with plus raw power and plus speed. So when you think about the trajectory of where guys are going, that to me implies there's a star coming in Boston. It's just the question of when. His arm suits him best for second base, though. So that's really where it works. But this is the major leagues. You hit your cutoff guy out a little deeper, and that's going to solve that if he's in the outfield. So, yeah, the Sox have a good problem for themselves.
They certainly do. And the other question is, too, is Rafael Devers going to get into a spot where he is unhappy? You know, he has a long-term contract here with the just thinking about it, he's signed through 2034, as I'm looking right here. So that's a long way away. He's a free agent in 2034. So we haven't started talking about years with threes at any point.
Right.
But if you think about it, you know, Vlad Guerrero is going to get paid a lot of money this coming off season. Maybe some team looks at Devers and goes, wow, he's a huge value. Maybe the Red Sox can get an even bigger return and really push forward. I don't know if it's going to get there, but it's definitely a situation to keep an eye on. Now, speaking of the corners, we're going to start our preview series right here on Fantasy Sports today. We're going to talk about the first baseman, the targets we're looking for in our fantasy leagues in 2025. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started.
Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. FST, Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you here. Sam White, the sports guy behind the glass. I think is it TD Jake on the ones and twos? If it's not, it is. No one really knows who cares. But somebody is, hey, it is. See, I love that. But somebody's pressing the buttons, and I love that it is Jake. So how about that? With that said, folks, it's time to get ready. What is a failure to prepare? Is preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin for my social studies students out there. It's time to look at first base targets. A lot of people are going into drafts. Now, here's the thing, all right? any league that I'm in, I'm always looking at the league settings to see how it's scored. I'm not just going to assume 5x5. In this case, we will, but that's the trick. If you have a league that is scored uniquely in some way, take a look at that. Spend some time to see that maybe, just maybe, walks are valued more than runs scored, and that can come down to the difference in taking a player. But assuming we're talking 5x5, right, Joe? And for me, position eligibility. That's where it really drives down. So let's start with first base targets, talking with Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book for baseball and football. It's out right now. Joe, the first base target of whom I'd like to speak is Vlad Guerrero. In a contract year, definitely has to bounce back from last year. This is one of my top picks. Looking at him from a lineup position, he should have Santander behind him. And the bottom of the order for Toronto starts, for me, with a guy like Andres Gimenez, a guy that has stolen 20, 20, and 30 over the last 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. You put a guy at the bottom of the order on base, and then you have a guy like Vlad Guerrero being productive going towards the other side and also driving runs in. This could be huge.
Yeah, look, last year in the second half, especially, Vlad was great. Coming off a bounce-back year, because in 2023, it was a bit of a down year for Vlad. Very disappointing. Certainly, his commitment to his physique, I think, is very important, and you could see that was more of a thing last season than it was the year before. It mattered. Baseball's a long season. It's one thing to work big. It's another thing to work heavy, and I think that was from Poor Striker's Almanac by Matt Stryker, which is one of my favorite pieces that I was given in my history classes to read. He actually gives you dual eligibility too, qualifies at first and third in some leagues, depending on where you're playing. Last year, Vladdy had 199 hits, drove in 100 runs. The projections you see are pretty much right there for a 300 and basically be another 30, 100, 100 type player. He's going as the 14th player overall in the consensus ADP right now on Fantasy Pros. And you know what? Why not? Like, if I'm at the turn, I'll take my shot with Vlad. The dual eligibility allows the draft to come to me, which is why I love Vlad. Maybe another third baseman looks good on the way down that third round. Okay, great. If not, maybe there's a first baseman who slips through the cracks. Okay, great. I like that flexibility. That's why Vlad is a great target at the turn.
Yeah, and point about the position eligibility, because when we're going to talk about third base, we'll talk about the obvious names, and after that, it becomes a wasteland. And I can tie that into this next player at first base target, and it's Pete Alonso, returning to the Mets. And if you look at a projected lineup, he should have Nimmo behind him and then Mark Vientos. And I think that if you miss on one of the names, Ramirez, Guerrero at third base, Vientos is definitely your guy. We'll talk more about that later. He's also going to have Soto in front of him. That's really exciting for Pete Alonso. Let's talk.
Yeah, Alonso could hit third. He could hit fifth in this lineup. Either way, I think it's a good spot for him. You're looking at a player who also coming off a bit of a down year in 2024, only drove in 88 runs, but the Mets lineup was pretty sluggish most of the year. They're a team that got hot after the All-Star break. Hit 240 last year, which is better than the 218 he hit the year before, but what you're looking for is to get him back to that 100 RBI potential. And remember, the contract he signed has an out clause. So if he has a huge year where he hits 40-something bombs and drives in 115 runs, he just might go out there and test the market again. So I'm going to say right now, I think Pete Alonso, a more interesting investment because he's cheaper than, say, the Matt Olsons of the world or even Bryce Harpers of the world. Now, is he as good of a hitter as Harper or Freeman? No. Is he as good as Matt Olson? I think that's a real conversation. And when you're looking in those auction leagues, especially when you're bidding on players, if you could save yourself $5 and get Pete Alonso at first base as opposed to some of the aforementioned fellas, I think that is a good use of your budget overall. So I expect a bounce back from Pete Alonso. I expect that lineup, as you said, to be even better with Juan Soto now hitting that 2 spot and being on base. A lot of RBI potential, a lot of home run potential for Pete Alonso.
All right, continuing first base talk. Now, for me here, it starts to get dicey because now we're going to start to talk about 2 players, actually, that swapped out essentially. And I can't see a big difference. First, we'll start in Arizona. They lose Christian Walker to Houston, but they gain Josh Naylor, last played with Cleveland. Joe, how do you see this as a plus what for Arizona, if at all?
Well, I don't know how much of a plus necessarily, but I think that it's a push. You're losing Christian Walker, who's been a really solid guy in the middle here, and now you're getting Josh Naylor. Now, Josh Naylor, another guy, too, I want to keep a close eye on, too. The shape he's in spring, how he looks. But last year, coming off a 31-homer season for Josh Naylor, 108 RBI. Now, he hit just 243. The year before, he hit 308. Most of his career was more in the 250s. So the 308 seems like a bit of an anomaly. However, looking at the projections here, 262. If he gives me 262 and 28 home runs, I think the home run projections are a little low, to tell you the truth, on Josh Naylor. This is also a team that scored a ton of runs last year. The Arizona Diamondbacks are a speedy team. They're a very aggressive team between McCarthy and Corbin Carroll on the base paths, right? Ketel Marte is a terrific player. So he landed in a good spot. So I'm very bullish on Josh Naylor. Again, if you don't get one of those elite guys, the Vlads or the Bryce Harpers or the Freemans,
Right.
this is where that kind of soft middle target kind of, falls into play here. Like Alonso's a little bit more expensive. Can I still get maybe a 3,100, 100 season out of Josh Naylor? I think I can.
All right, now let's talk Christian Walker, and then I'm going to give you 5 guys that I'd rather have than Naylor or Walker. Go.
Well, that's fair, and I understand the thought process, but at the same time, you have to look at the consistency for Christian Walker, a guy who has 25 or more home runs 3 straight seasons, a guy who's typically in that 90 RBI range. He ends up in an interesting ballpark factor. Not that Arizona's a bad one, but Houston's a very good one, and I don't think he's ever had the kind of line of protection around him like an Alvarez and Altuve and that kind of star power. So I think that's what's a little different for Christian Walker. But who are these guys that you're going to just reach for over these two?
So if I don't get Vlad, I would prefer Yandy Diaz, Jake Berger, Michael Tolia, Luis Ariz, Isaac Paredes, or Yanier Diaz, or even Tyler Soderstrom. How about that? And if Jack comes up for Kansas City, I'd take him as well.
Well, it sounds like a lot of sleepers you're in on, and we're going to talk about those sleepers in just a moment. But before we do, who are the picks that could hurt you at first base in 2025? We'll tell you those names right after this.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today, the show where your producer is laughing hysterically as he counts you in, and you're not really sure, A, why he's laughing and what the count is up to, but here we are. We're having a good time, as we always do. Matt Stryker and Joe Pisapia hanging out with you, talking baseball here, and we have to prepare coming up for this season, whether it be season-long DFS, straight up wagering, we have to be prepared. At SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, those are our social media handles in case you missed it or you've lapsed. Talking about first baseman here, we went to some eyes that we want to have. Now let's go to some busts, some guys that we're avoiding. And this is important to understand that we're avoiding them at their ADP, at their average draft position. So the first guy here that we have up has dual eligibility. It's Spencer Steer. He'll categorize at first base and outfield. Now, Joe, he'll hit between Fraley and Jeimer Candelario. And I think if Candelario returns to form, it changes the way guys pitch to Steer. And as I say it this morning before we came on the air, I saw some great footage of Barry Larkin working out with Candelario and a few of the other Reds in camp. And I just love that stuff, man. Talk to me about Spencer Steer and why you're off him.
Well, again, it's not hating the player, it's hating the ADP. I think that's what it comes down to. Steer had a nice season last year, 20 homers, 25 steals. People are looking at those counting stats, and I get that. The year before, he had 272, but that batting average dropped all the way to 225. I think that's a bit of a red flag. Also, the Reds were a team last year that had a ton of injuries, a ton of missed guys. Noelvi Marte was a guy that was missing significant time due to suspension. So I just think the infield could get a little bit more crowded. Matt McClain missed all of last year too, right? Remember? With an injury, he's back now and healthy. So my concern is, what if he starts getting squeezed? Now, Spencer Steer is a guy that can play the outfield, can play the infield, and that makes him valuable. But looking at the overall ADP, we're talking about a guy going in the top 100. I don't think he's a top 100 player. I just don't think that of him. And to me, top 100 players are guys that I'm not worried about getting squeezed in the slightest, right? So that's where I struggle. I look at some of the names that you mentioned in our last segment, the Cody Bellingers of the world or Isaac Perez of the world, being similar statistical type players, if not better, or with more upside. And I don't see those guys getting squeezed at all. So that's my big concern when it comes to Matt McClain. It's not that I wasn't impressed by the season he had. It was more just looking at the player and saying, all right, at what point do we not get concerned about that dip from 271 to 225? That's a decline for a player in their 20s, in their mid-20s. But that's usually not what you're looking for. You're looking for guys going in the other direction. And as nice as the versatility is, where he could continue to stay in the lineup, what if Christian Encarnacion Strand starts to hit this spring, finally? What if Matt McClain comes back and is raking and he's got his spot? Noelvi Marte's got his spot. And you mentioned Candelario. Like, all of a sudden, where does that put Spencer Steer? And I think that is my bigger concern here. We're talking about the 11th first baseman overall. I'm just not buying that ADP.
All right, I like it. I like the warning, and also considering the propensity the Reds had last year to strike out. I mean, he's strikeout prone. He struck out over 130 times in each of his last two seasons. New manager Terry Francona is definitely going to do something about that. All right, this next first base bust or first base avoidance based off their ADP, according to Joe Pisapia, is Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman for the New York Yankees. I mean, this is a guy that plays nearly every day, strikes out a lot as well, and he's probably on a decline. Should hit behind Chisholm, and that could present opportunities. So talk to me about the ADP. Where's Goldschmidt going? Who's going around him that you'd rather?
I think where I struggle with Goldschmidt is a combination of things. Number one, it's the fact that he's 37, the fact that he's had decline in his power and his batting average 3 years in a row. I understand last year in St. Louis was not the ideal scenario. I look at these stats and I go, okay, can he get to 24 home runs and 75 runs scored and 75 RBI? Yeah. That's not a very exciting player at this stage. I think what's happening is people are getting that pinstripe goggles situation where, well, guys on the Yankees, so we automatically want him. Now, there's some guys on the Yankees I do automatically want that are new there, and I'm very intrigued by, but I struggle a little bit with Goldschmidt. I know the smaller ballpark should be a positive for him. I just wonder, is this a player that is well past his prime and we're going to get an Anthony Rizzo 2.0 scenario on our hands sooner than later? Or is this guy going to have another renaissance and all of a sudden pick things back up because he landed in Yankee Stadium and, it's a good lineup around him? As a Cardinal fan, I'm curious, what were your takes last year watching Paul Goldschmidt? Did he look like a player that was done to you?
It looked more about the surrounding environment. That's not Cardinal baseball. It's reflective of the fact that the Cardinals actually can field a competitive team this year based off youth. But you mentioned the Yankee goggles, but I believe that Paul Goldschmidt's a pro's pro, and he's going to contribute, and that's all he needs to do, Joe.
All right. Well, those guys could be busts, but there's also plenty of sleepers at the first base position. So if you miss out on some of the big names, there's a lot of pivots who have a ton of upside. We're going to talk about those players when we come back right here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today we're having a great time. Matt and Joe with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate part of the incredible SportsGrid family, getting you ready for baseball, but also we've got basketball, hockey, anything you possibly could be into and wager upon. We've got you covered around here, and everyone that I know has some type of revolving bill, whether your Netflix, your phone, your groceries, your life. Why not pay for it with your love of sports? You're going to be watching and keep an eye on the games anyway. Why not? All right, let's talk first base sleepers here, the indicas of the bunch. Joe, let's go back to the Yankees. We closed out on Paul Goldschmidt being off of him at his ADP. Now let's come back to the Yankees here and talk about another free agent acquisition, first base outfield eligible. It's a much younger player. It's Cody Bellinger. Let's talk about him, where he's going, and why you like him in a sleepy way.
Yeah, well, look, he's, I think, the preferred new Yankee bat that I would like to be targeting. I know Goldschmidt is cheaper, so I think that's very tantalizing for people, but this is a guy going within the top 100 who plays first base and qualifies at the outfield, so he gives you position flexibility. He gives the Yankees position flexibility, too. If there's injuries, that's huge because that's going to always allow Bellinger to be staying in the lineup. But we're talking about a left-handed power bat landing in Yankee Stadium. This is the guy I'm looking for, right? Like this is a really good fit. The stage is not going to be too big for Cody Bellinger. Basically, you know, this is a guy that's played his whole career in big markets, right? Talking about Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. His dad played for the Yankees. I mean, this is not going to phase him one bit. He's a year removed from a fantastic season where he had 26 home runs in 2023, drove in almost 100, scored almost 100, hit 307. Now, last year was a bit of a disappointment. Also, what's weird is the stolen bases went down for Cody Bellinger from 20 to 9 year over year. Can he get that back up to maybe the 15 range? Projections have him right now at 12. I think he can get closer to that 15 range. It would not shock me if it even went past there. So Cody Bellinger is, I think, in a really good situation to buy back in. And at the end of the day, if he can give you a 25, 100, 100 season, or even, you know, push that envelope towards 30 home runs, not out of the question in that ballpark. I think this is a guy that fits perfectly hand in glove with Yankee Stadium. And I think it was a really savvy move losing Soto. If you're going to lose Soto, spread the money around. Guys like Cody Bellinger certainly help. So I'm in on Bellinger, especially at his ADP. I think he's a value still.
Love it. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for value. You know, it's funny. It seems that every time you find a great player, they always turn out to be left-handed. It's just there's something strange. I'd say maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 great left-handed.
Think about this, Matt, too. Spencer Steer is at 90 overall. Cody Bellinger's at 87. Now, you're telling me you'd rather have Spencer Steer than Cody Bellinger?
No,
not
at all.
I don't think so.
This next player, I want to know where he's going, and I want to know who's around him. I really like when you do that. Let's talk Red Sox. Let's talk handedness. Let's talk ballpark. Let's talk Tristan Casas.
Tristan Casas is a beast. If this guy gets a full season, he is going to hit 30 home runs. I mean, look at the projections. They have him at 26. I think this is just the conservative projections, which I'm cool with. I'm cool. This is good. I don't want to get, too excited too quickly. But Tristan Casas going at ADP of 119 overall. He is right now the consensus 13th first baseman off the board. If you miss out on the Matt Olson type guys and Pete Alonso type guys, I mean, there's a world where Tristan Casas can fill that bill for you. If you dial it back to 2023, Casas was already hitting 24 homers in 132 games. Last year, only played 63 games. Injuries really kind of bit into his season. But I think you're looking at Casas as an emerging power bat. The Red Sox are going to be a lot to handle this year, I can tell you. I think the Red Sox are going to be really tough. And especially since I think the Orioles took a step back this offseason, I think there's a void here for the Red Sox to step in there and really challenge the Yankees. You could have a nice little Yankees-Red Sox renaissance this season in 2025 with that rivalry. That would be very cool. But you look at what Casas is capable of, and now you've added Bregman to this lineup. You have a healthier, hopefully, Rafael Devers in this lineup. And as long as Casas can play 150 games, you're looking at a guy who absolutely has a shot at 30 bombs. The batting average is, look, it's not going to be great. If he hits 240, 250, that's probably what you're going to get out of him. But we're talking about light tower power. And again, in Fenway Park, that's a pretty good situation for a left-handed power bat.
Yeah, man, it looks like we're playing overs and team totals with the Red Sox. And you mentioned how the Orioles, you say, have taken a step back. I still think a team like the Orioles is a 6-7 inning team because they've got a fantastic bullpen. Maybe we're playing run lines with them. We should actually do a segment where we analyze some of the top teams and how we're approaching them from a wagering standpoint. But right now, let's stick with first base sleepers. Now, here, you're going to have to drag me on this one, man. I don't know what it is. Vinny Pasquantino, right? I'm not on him. I'm not on the Royals because everyone is because of Bobby Witt Jr., but in his defense is 1 year of like 130 games from which to extrapolate. We don't like to do that. Talk me into Vinny P.
Well, I just took one of those ancestry tests, and it turns out I'm 96% Italian. You know how everyone's always like a mix of things? I thought it would be more of a mix. It was not. Now, Vinny Pasquantino, he's 103% Italian, okay? He broke the ancestry scale. You got to love Vinny Pasquantino. But in all seriousness, Vinny Pasquantino, I look at this Royals team, and I see a team that I think is going to continue to get better. I think Bobby Witt Jr. has a chance at MVP this year. And I think Pasquantino has another home run gear in him. I think there's another level there. And when we're talking about those players like Josh Naylor and like Christian Walker, if you miss out on them, I think the pivot is the Bellingers. The pivot is the Pasquantinos and Tristan Casas guys, because those guys could end up at the end of the day with stat lines that look pretty similar. If I took the picture away and said, this is Christian Walker in 2025, you would say, okay, maybe more like 26 home runs maybe, but okay, yeah, that sounds about right. There you have it. So you're looking always for pivots, and I think that's very important that you look for the tiers of players. And this tier that we're talking about, this sleeper tier, they're all clustered together basically. So there's some really good value on all these players. I don't like him as much as Bellinger. I don't like him as much as some of the other guys on this list, but I do think that Royals team is continuing to improve, and I think Pasquantino hasn't quite reached his full potential yet. And that's another thing to always keep in mind when you're looking at players. He's 27. He's entering his prime. I think with good health this year, last year, 131 games, he hit 19 homers. He drove in 97 runs last year. I don't think that should be forgotten. I think you could easily get over 100 runs driven in this year and probably flirt with 25 to 30 home runs. That sounds a lot like Josh Naylor to me, but a lot later in terms of draft capital.
Well, I mean, look, I guess it all depends on your draft strategy. I mean, in the Vinny P case, you're drafting based off of the offensive ecosystem, right? It's something you talk about in the book, the players around him and what that team's capable of, the manager, so on and so forth. But then you get to this next player, and a lot of times you have to draft for environment, for park factor. Let's talk Michael Tolia. Let's talk about him from Colorado. A lot of people are going to say, who? But that's the beauty of it. While everyone is rushing to get into the Pete Alonso door, the Vinny P door, all these names, that Tolio door is wide open. Let's walk in. He's a first-round pick from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He's a switch hitter. He'll have Nolan Jones hitting behind him, and then Thairo Estrada, which I think is a great get for Colorado. I wish they had some pitching. But talk to me a little bit about Michael Tolio and why people might be able to just go and grab him. He does strike out a lot, but then again, everyone does these days.
He does. Note to everybody, don't draft Colorado Rockies pitchers. It's just don't do it.
There's no one to draft. Who are you going to draft?
There isn't. And that's why I continue to wonder at one point, do the Rockies have to think long and hard about having a new stadium that's got a dome or something like that? Something's got to change here because the Rockies can't pitch. And I don't think the Rockies can win in the ballpark factor. Well, I mean, at a certain point, when do you have to learn to, if you're going to keep the team there, and I think they want to keep the team in that city, you've got to figure out another way to do it. Tolio has big time power. Last year he struggled, hit just 106 before he got demoted. Then he came back over his last 101 games. He had 21 homers, 10 steals. Like Matt said, big strikeout rate, 32%. So I think this is the poor man's version of Tristan Casas, right? Casas is the more polished hitter in a much better lineup in a good scenario. Tolio is kind of that guy, if you're not playing in points leagues where strikeouts hurt you, that you could look for some of that power. Batting average is going to drag, though, more than Casas, I think. But at the end of the day, that's another guy that you could certainly look at. There's one more sleeper we're going to talk about when we come back, and then we're going to dive into the numbers. But I think the nice thing is you're starting to see how first base shapes up, is that you have some options, and there's a lot of guys that can reach that 25, 90, 80 profile, maybe give you some stolen bases here and there, too. And I think that is nice to see some depth this year from the first base position. So one more sleeper, it could be on Matt Stryker's favorite team. I'll tell you who it is. Come back.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you here. And Joe, I always say it, it's about making good choices, making the right choices. What are these choices going to lead me to? always think about it. So we closed out the last segment doing the first base sleepers. We kept this one over here, and then we'll dive in deeper to some numbers. We're going to St. Louis. I'm a noted St. Louis Cardinals fan. It's not why we kept it for last, but I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. I mean, look at a guy like Alec Burleson. Should hit behind Mason Wynn. I think Mason Wynn is absolutely ready to break out. But when you're looking at a guy like Burleson, 26 years old, gives you a left-handed bat. I think he can hit 270, 20 home runs, maybe even steal 10 bases. Joe, your thoughts on Burleson?
Yeah, he's going to hit in the 2 spot, most likely. He can play first base. He can play the outfield. He's going to hit between Contreras and Wynn. It's a great spot in the top of the order. And it's funny because he's going a little behind Michael Toglia, but I think Burleson's a much safer player at the end of the day. Does he have the same power ceiling? No, I think these projections are actually a little light. I continue to compare him statistically to Ben Zobrist, a guy that's going to give you 75 to 80 RBI and run score, depending on where he's hitting in lineups, right? He's going to hit 20 home runs. It's going to be boring. You're going to love it. He's going to hit 272. And at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, okay, I will take this player. I'll take the position flexibility he gives me. And once again, don't discount lineup protection. Don't discount your players who are hitting in good spots in the order. You know, as tempting it is, to see, Spencer Steer, right? Perfect example. A guy hitting 6th or 7th in the lineup. Do you want him for those counting stats, or do you want Alec Burleson hitting in the 2 spot?
Right.
To me, it's a no-brainer. And I look at Spencer Steer and you say, why is Spencer Steer potentially a bust? Well, because I could probably look a little bit longer down in the draft, find Alec Burleson. Am I going to give up steals there? Yeah, a little bit potentially, but I'm going to improve a great deal in batting average. And to tell you the truth, with the new rules, steals are easier to find than batting average.
Yeah.
If you're playing those 5x5 leagues, we're in a renaissance. I'm chasing power and batting average. I can find stolen bases. They're everywhere nowadays because all of a sudden the rules changes have really drastically changed the landscape of stolen bases as the category people are chasing in Roto. It is much more abundant than it's been in a decade. So very interesting, I think, evolution of what's going on. And Alec Burleson, a guy that you should not forget on draft day. So there you go. Those are the sleepers, Matt, at first base for 2025.
It's fantastic advice overall. I'm hopeful that it goes beyond hearing the names and the stats and that people listen to the advice, because the advice that you're giving is always sound. You must look in to see where are the premium, where are the things I need to reach for, and where are the things I can always get. I don't have to knock myself out. All right, let's go by the numbers here, because before you know it, there's going to be baseball, albeit it'll be played in Japan. It will be Major League Baseball, and it's going to just start to kick things off. Joe, let's talk about some of the interesting factors that are going to come out of the first ever, no, that can't be the first ever, but there's going to be a regular season MLB game at the Tokyo Dome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's the first time they're going to have 2 Japanese pitchers squaring off against each other in the opening one. So that's pretty special here. And I think, Japanese pride in their baseball is enormous. They are a country that loves baseball. And the fact that 2 of their great stars are going to be pitching in this contest here, Shota Imanaga and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, that's impressive. First matchup of Japanese-born starting pitchers in a regular season MLB game. It's at the Tokyo Dome. And it's the first time 2 have ever squared off against each other in any opening day game. And that is a testament to how good Japanese baseball has developed, or how well it's developed in the last 20 plus years. There were a lot of people who were skeptical. Remember when Ichiro came in? Oh, could he be the same kind of player? And I think that's kind of an amazing moment too. This is the year Ichiro is going in the Hall of Fame. And this is the year these 2 pitchers are squaring off there. So really cool stuff there from the perspective of just historically looking. We had, when we were younger, the Hideo Nomos of the world and some other players come in, and some had great success, others not so much, but you're seeing some of these players coming in the last 5-6 years, and you see the quality of the players coming over from Japan and how consistent it is. And it just tells you that the game overall there has really risen to a higher level. So very cool little stat here. Should be fun. The question is, will Mike Striker actually might be awake for this game because he has small children. Now that I'm thinking about it, you might be a better bet than me to watch this game live.
It's funny from a personal standpoint. I've been in that building both for wrestling and for baseball, and it's about the atmosphere. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about how baseball is transcendent. Now, a lot of people could make this about nationality, and you can just for a moment. But overall, this is about baseball, and this is about a universal language and something upon which we can all agree is going to be very special. And I like Imanaga. I really do. I like that Cubs front end on that pitching staff, Steele after him, and then Assad. I think lefties are important. That brings us to our next stat. 2 lefties were Cy Young Award winners last year. They were Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal, respectively. And Joe, there is an interesting insight. We talked about how left-handed batters are always so great. The interesting insight to left-handed pitchers here with regards to Cy Young. What do you have?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often where you have 2 lefties win the Cy Young Award. The only other 2 times, and think about this, the only other 2 times it's ever happened in Major League history, we're talking 100-plus years of Major League history, 2002, Randy Johnson and Barry Zito, and then 1977, Steve Carlton and Sparky Lyle. So you would think, all those years of Randy Johnson winning Cy Youngs and some other great left-handed pitchers that we've had, that this might have happened more frequently, but I thought this was crazy that it's only happened 3 times now. And Skubal and Sale both having fantastic seasons last year. Basically, they were number 1 and number 2 in every category they were pitching in. It was an incredible rebirth for Chris Sale. And kudos to the Atlanta Braves, too. I mean, think about that. That they had the guts to go out there, take a shot on Chris Sale. The Chris Sale regeneration was unbelievable last year and really kept them alive into almost the playoffs.
All right, let's talk youth and let's talk plate discipline. Most career MLB walks before their 27th birthday. Mickey Mantle is number 1 on the list. Who's number 2?
Number 2 is Juan Soto, and he's not going to turn 27 until after the season's over, so I'm pretty sure he's going to go past this. 797 for Mickey Mantle, 769 for Juan Soto. It's crazy. And then Ed Yost and Mel Ott. I mean, this is talk about like Hall of Fame list here that you're getting with these guys. It just tells you how incredible Juan Soto is. And I got to tell you, Matt, like when you step back and you look at what the Mets have here for the next 15 years, a 26-year-old superstar who for the next 10 years could really be making some headway in a lot of record books in Major League Baseball. We come back, some more numbers for you on FST.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Stryker and Joe Pisapia with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate. And now we're going to take a deep dive. We've been talking about pitching. We're going to be talked about left-handed Cy Young Award winners. So let's talk about how to wager on Tariq Skubal for the upcoming season. Joe and I are going to discuss the stats, but Joe, the first thing I want to throw out there is room for regression. And I think a lot of public wagers, especially early on, are going to come in and chase last season. And I'm personally going to wait for the numbers to shake out. To me, it was the use of his changeup at 86 miles per hour versus four seam at 97 that really had hitters off balance. You and I both know major league hitters make adjustments. Is there a regression for Tariq Skubal?
I don't think so. I think Tariq Skubal has really shown that he is a dominant pitcher. He's only 27 years old, too. He's got a couple years left with the Tigers on his contract. But Tariq Skubal, if you look at these stats last year, he was basically first or second. The only guy ahead of him in some of these categories was Chris Sale, and not by much. Second in whip, .92, a 2.39 ERA through almost 200 innings, which you don't get a lot. The only concern I have is, well, he did pitch into the playoffs last year, and it wasn't up in his innings, and that's something that he hasn't really dealt with. So if you're looking for aggression, it would come with, I think, innings log from last year, maybe taking its toll a little bit on him. But I like what the Tigers have done. The Tigers are a small market team that have, been waiting so long for some of these Casey Mize and Spencer Torkelsons to save them. Meanwhile, it's going to be the Riley Greens and Kerry Carpenters and Tariq Skubals that pull out this organization. They spent some money in the offseason, and they tried. They tried to go after Alex Bregman and overpay him, and he chose Boston instead. You're not going to be able to do anything about that. They ended up acquiring Gleyber Torres. But at least you're seeing effort there, and I think that's exciting, and they still got some more exciting prospects coming through the system. So I think we're in a good spot here with Tariq Skubal and the Detroit Tigers, and it's good to see some of those smaller market teams making the most of when you're bad, acquiring some good talent and actually putting it on the field, and then trying to be aggressive. And we'll see. Maybe the Tigers will try to give him an extension this year at some point, and I think it would be wise if they did, because when you have a Tariq Skubal, you have a chance to be a competitive team in that division.
All right, let's talk nuts and bolts here. If I'm not mistaken, Sam Yarnell, Sam Y, the sports guy, our producer, I believe is a catcher by trade. Is that a yes or a no in my ear, Sam?
He is.
Sam, you're a catcher. Okay, so let's talk ball here. If I know I've got a guy that sits 97 with his four-seamer and he was relying on an 86 mile per hour change as pretty much his out pitch last year, do you think this year, if I know that his slider sits at 88, do you think he'll throw his slider where he threw his change this year as opposed to last year? Sam, what do you think? Yes or no? Too early to tell, says Sam.
Okay.
And that's the right answer, guys, because how we're going to wager on these teams, we got to wait and see how they shake out. But, Joe, I think we're all just waiting to see is when is Tariq Skubal a Dodger? Because that's going to happen if Detroit is somehow out of it come, say, August or September. And it brings us back to a very interesting stat about the Dodgers and their luxury tax for this year.
No, gross. I mean, look, the Miami Marlins' entire payroll is $47 million. The Los Angeles Dodgers just luxury tax is $142 million. So it's 3x. I mean, more than 3x. I mean, what are we doing here, folks? It's crazy. And I understand the Dodgers are in a unique situation and good for them. I mean, at some point, these deferred contracts are going to catch up with them, right? Like it has to. I can only assume this group is going to sell off to some bigger group after that. And they'll worry about, they'll let that organization worry about trying to figure out the debt or whatever else is going on there. But it's just appalling that you could look at, a team that's only spending $47 million and Juan Soto is making 51 this year. So you have organizations that have lower payroll than one single player on a team. And it's not because they can't. There's revenue sharing. They can. It's just the way that these teams want to choose to operate, which is choosing to be profitable instead of choosing to be competitive. Or what's worse, maybe, is those owners like in Milwaukee, they're trying to be competitive, but not too competitive. It's like, well, we want to be good, but we don't want to be great. And it's very frustrating. And then they wonder why, certain organizations are tougher to root for. And this is why I say to fans out there, the loyalty factor it's nice. It's nice to be loyal to your team. But at what point does your team have to be loyal to you as a fan? And it's something that as a Met fan, I struggled with for years with the Wilpons. I stopped going to games. I used to be a season ticket holder. When Uncle Stevie came around, I started to watch again. And guess what? Ownership really makes a difference in your fandom. It's a two-way street, fans. It's okay to choose a different team. I gave you permission. Hour 2, we got third base preview coming at you.